Sawadee and hello. Welcome to Radio Nong Kwai, broadcasting from Doi Hua Ma Nong Luang. We hope you enjoy today's scheduled programming. อย่าลืมเข้าป่ากันนะจ๊ะ
Yeah. So I may have told you this before, but I remember the first time that my partner was kind of like introduced to you. So like she and I were driving around town running errands, and I was like waiting in the car a lot, and I had your podcast on, the Ekofascism series, on the car speaker. And after a while, she gets back in from like the bank or whatever it was, and I think you were.
This sounds a well gangster.
Yeah, well,
keep the engine running. I'll be in and out in no time.
I'll be listening to this Swedish nerd talk about anyway. And you were like in the middle of like quoting some kind of like esoteric Nazi thing, like proto-Nazi from like the 1920s, and you were doing a German accent, and so she gets in the car, and like you can just hear like, so as to realize our heroic ambitions, it is essential our people confront the ancient, prolonged, millennia-old Judeo-Bolshevik red terror, you know. And ever since then, she's referred to you as like that Nazi podcast guy you're friends with. So
I think I could never record in like a public space.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like I get worried like listening to even I live in like Asia, like listening to you on the speakers in the car sometimes is feels dangerous, you know.
Yeah,
and rightly so.
I can imagine that. It's not it's not an icebreaker. Like, you should probably not have it like during like dinner with friends.
Well, that was your icebreaker with her. So whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's true.
So that series.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm tired though, man. Like I've been in Kuala Lumpur for like more than a week now, a week and a half. But you know, I've been in the jungle.
Of a place,
no, but the jungle is great. I love. You see me in the jungle.
Yeah, the jungle is very nice.
Yeah. I'm in my element there.
You know, I think I never saw those twin towers when I was in Kuala Lumpur. I wonder what I was doing there.
You can miss them. Like they're not.
Yeah,
too,
right.
Yeah. They're tucked away behind like all the other many towers and shit, and the little bits of jungle. Yeah, so you've
had some tasty roti canai at least.
I've had much tasty roti canai. I sat down at my roti canai place yesterday for the first time, and I didn't have to order. They just brought my.
He knew.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So you're right now towards the end of. Are you towards the end of your Swedenborgen kind of psychoanalytic mindfuckery or? How's that going?
I don't think it's not. It's like reaching some sort of a peak right now. I'd say, but it's not the end, nor the beginning of the end, or the end of the. It is, you know, maybe perhaps the last one. But I'm not going to sit here and quote Churchill. So.
Well, it's not like you've sat there and quoted anyone else repugnant. Anyway, the next series, as you told me. That you're going to do is going to be Ekofascism Part 3.
Yeah.
Which is what brings us together today.
I haven't really decided if it's going to be called, because, you know, I have another parallel series that is somewhat similar, right? Like the biological peace and warfare.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit back and forth on that. And then I also have, you know, I have one... bonus series that is called only Parapolitical Cannabis, and so I have also started doing one that is called Parapolitical Corn.
Yo, did I have a hand in that?
No, you didn't, but I have listened to what you have had to say about corn. I mean, you did like
I've done like fucking
unofficially
a whole series about corn, and you're like, no, got nothing to do with it.
No, I mean, like, of course you did, like, in a indirect way. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, to the listener, like, you weren't. I haven't sampled you so far.
That's fine.
Anything,
I don't need to be sampled. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But other than that, it's of course your
inspirational, I'm
plants,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it pushed me into that direction of corn once again. Like I could have done cotton maybe. I've been thinking. Somebody asked, they wanted to do like just grass, like lawn mower grass, like
that's
in front of your house kind of
one.
grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is kind of sketchy like how that happened. And there seems to be quite a monopoly all over the world of like all of suburbia all over the world seems to get its grass seeds from like one and the same source.
Interesting. I don't know about that. Okay.
And I think it started like, it started with like the aristocrats, right? Like the French aristocrats. It's like a really petty bourgeois thing to imitate the aristocracy. That's why you want to have a lawn, like because the aristocrats had it because it's sort of like the most labor-intensive thing you can have. Like you need servants if you have that big of like if you have a castle and you're surrounded by like, well-cut green grass, you need to have people to take care of it all the time. And then, obviously that's a sign of luxury.
Well,
right?
and also
But, like,
the fact
most
that it
people-
serves no agricultural purpose whatsoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not really beautiful either, like in
No.
the way that, flowers and stuff are. So it's really just like, I have this much land.
Yeah, I can
And
waste
I'm covering
it.
it in grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, so we've got like the but you know what I was gonna say, like the cannabis one, that was like low key maybe my favorite series, because that's the one where you started with like, why is everything made out of plastic? And I was like, fucking finally somebody addresses this question.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of really wanted to return to like that point, but you also like we had a conversation about that not too long ago, because it's a really wild thing. And when you start to find out like, that plastic, like that it all comes from oil and like these fossil fuels, like that you I think that's an eye opener in its own right, that you can actually derive so many materials from tar, oil, like coal tar, and just raw oil, and like all these fossil fuels. They aren't like one substance.
No.
Like they're actually like, they're made of so many different things inside there that you can like start pulling molecular strings out of them, like in absurdum. Like everything from plastic to preservatives to fertilizers to biocides to dyes to like everything that's synthetic is almost derived from these things.
That's why I thought like that, like that's why I said like low key I think the cannabis series was the most interesting one, because it kind of did cover the biological peace and warfare and the ecofascism. And in my head today, when I was like, okay, we're going to recap the ecofascism series, I couldn't like remove the cannabis series from my kind of remembering of it, because it is so intrinsically tied to it. And also like, I think maybe more importantly, like the social formations to which you have to create that plastic, right, is kind of where it ended up. And that was a bit of a mind blower to me. No spoilers. You have to listen to the whole like 9 hours, listeners, to get to the punchline.
Yeah. But the cannabis series, at least it's not super long. It's quite like
only like 9 hours. Nothing.
yeah. I can't remember like how long it is, but it isn't terrible. They're about like 1.5 hours each. I think, like the episodes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, in that case, well, there's a little rundown of some of Marx's various mind-altering, schizophrenia-inducing series. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Let me just finish up the point. Like so after the because I didn't talk about this, but I found out about this somewhat recently, like last year during the summer, I think. I talked about like, so how did that start? To derive things like from oil and like coal tar.
Yeah.
And then I have talked about that many times, that it starts like with IG Farben. And that's not actually true, or like it is true, but so like IG Farben had a sort of grandfather like in the 1850s, and he's the man who came, like he would start doing all of this, and like so many of like these, like he'd I don't know like how many novel molecular strings did he manage to like sort of put his name to as the inventor, but like you can look at the list and you'll see that like all the ones that I mentioned before are covered, from everything from plastic to
just so people know,
eKKKofascism
is a German biosynthetics company.
Or a conglomerate
Or a conglomerate. At
like
this
all
point,
the
like it's Bayer, no, today.
That would be one of them, but
It's a big one. And
BASF,
Monsanto, and I think they bought Monsanto.
The Bayer
right?
Aniline Soda Fabrik is next in line. It's like one of the biggest today in the world. And they were like, there were loads of these mergers, like along the Main, right, river and the Ruhr, in the
Ruhr Valley
area, like on the western part, like on the border to France in Germany. Like it was the industrial hub basically of Germany, and they once this was discovered, that's how they sort of outmaneuvered the British empire. Like because the British Empire was based on naturally derived versions of all of these products that they were selling, and then all these corporations, these German corporations, who would later become IG Farben, they started to synthesize it, like everything. They could find a synthetic version.
So like the British were growing cotton and what have you, and then the Germans managed to synthesize some kind of synthetic. I can't remember what it was called, like
fiber.
It's like latexes and what have you, stuff like that. And synthetic rubber as well, no? Maybe
synthetic rubber as well, but that never got really productive, I think.
Okay.
Like to the same point, like because they were still, there's this interesting story about like Lysenko used to grow like dandelions, and he was really successful with it because it was a wild kind of dandelion that you can make rubber from. And so Himmler, that was part of and Himmler they stole like all the projects for these dandelions, but they couldn't, they didn't know how to replicate it because they would grow it in like neat rows, like organized like in the way that
right.
soldiers would stand during the Nuremberg the Nuremberg
marches,
campaigns, and the marches, and Lysenko had found out that you should grow them in clusters because that's sort of how they grow in nature, right? Like you often see.
Lysenko, by the way, is a Soviet. Was he like a agrobiologist? Yeah. So the counter to the ecofascism. Anyway, do go on. I'm just providing. Go on. Yes.
Yeah. No, but that's very good. I forget
you forget that other people aren't as brain poisoned as you. Yeah.
Yes, I often do, but I have you. So so Lysenko realized that you should grow them in clusters because often when you see dandelions in the wild in nature, they sort of grow in clusters because they help each other and they sacrifice each other for like the good of the big cluster. These are like some of the very socialist interpretations that Lysenko provided, which made sure that like when the SS Sammelkommando, which was this biopiracy division of the Ahnenerbe during the Operation Barbarossa and the Hungerplan, which was like the extermination program of the eco-fascist project.
I'm just going to pause you briefly. Biopiracy is when you steal biological knowledge of some kind, just so people are familiar with that term. Go on, yes.
Yeah. And they would steal material from the seed banks in the east, like all over the occupied territory that had been part of like the USSR. So after 1941, when the Barbarossa starts, right, they had this gigantic like project like of the Ahnenerbe, which was one of these big educational apparatuses under the direct control of Heinrich Himmler.
It was like the research and like kind of like the really kind of like wacky R&D side of the Nazi project, right?
Yeah. But some of its, I personally have focused mainly on the wacky shit.
They're trying to find Santa Claus kind of Nazism.
Yeah. Like literally looking for, gnomes and like visigoths from like hundreds of thousands of years ago. And but they also had these sort of more relevant projects like the the SS Samhällskommando, which was designated to steal all the scientific forward movement, the products of that scientific forward movement that had accumulated under Lysenko's guidance of the agricultural apparatus in the Soviet Union. So there were loads of test stations with seeds and the first seed banks, like the first modern seed banks in history. Also due to another man called Nikolai Vavilov, who was Lysenko's teacher at one point, and then they had a disagreement. Though, like, this is often like very exaggerated in bourgeois historian, like the way they frame it is like that Lysenko would have backstabbed him and, like, you know, wanted to tarnish his reputation. When I found out that,
Can I just pause you quickly? Are you aware of the English TV show University Challenge?
No, I don't think so.
It's like they get like all the like university like quiz groups, and it's on like the BBC. It's been running for like 50 years, and it's a quiz show for university nerds basically. And I remember I was listening to your Ecofascism part 2, they asked a question on University Challenge, and I can't quote it exactly, but it was almost exactly along the lines, what was the name of the Soviet agrobiologist who caused the death and suffering of famine of several millions of people throughout the 1930s and 40s and 50s? And I was like, I know his name.
No, that for sure. That's how he is remembered, right? And I don't really want to get into Lysenko because, like, you need to, like, it takes a long time to get rid of sort of that understanding. Like, it's more than pulling a dandelion root out of the ground. Like, you're gonna have to pull out a few clusters, like in your the liberal fields of your mind, to like really start appreciating that part of history in a different way. But what's interesting, like, with just so I finish up this point, like getting back to the grandfather of IG Farben, like, because you already suggested this connection that it's the wacky apparatus that goes to steal all these seeds and to take them from Lysenko and from Vavilov. And what I found out, like, just about the relationship between Vavilov and Lysenko was that Lysenko's dialecticians, like those trained in his methods, would defend some of Vavilov's, even though Vavilov was already dead by this time, they would defend his seed banks until they died. Like, they starved on their posts. Yeah, like they waited, like, you know, they were surrounded by shelf upon shelf of potato and rice, you know, that Vavilov had collected from all over the world, and they didn't touch it. They starved on their post, like, defending it from these from the fascists. And it's such a fucking, like, heartbreaking story that I don't know, that really, like, turned me around to, like, see, like, I mean, obviously they couldn't have been mortal enemies then, Lysenko and Vavilov. Like, you know, this was a joint project, and it has been obscured maybe then by the fact that, like, the enemy was, as always, the fascists. And then I started to find out who helped the fascists. Well, Sweden did. A lot of these seeds ended up in Sweden, like on test fields there, before they went over to, like Rockefeller, the Ford Foundation.
I was about to guess
yeah, always reappears, right?
Yeah.
But so, like, the last thing here, then, like, so I started to talk about deriving things from oil and from coal tar, like that. This is sort of like the origin of ecofascism, because it's the beginning of plastic. It's the beginning of synthetic nature, right? Like an artificial universe is made out of these, you know, black substances, right? Like, it's the darkness of darkness. And get this, right? Like, so the guy who began that work, Baron Karl von Reichenbach, he is also, like, he thought that this process was the Udic force, like the force of Odin, and that's where the word Udic force comes from.
Okay, you're gonna can you break that? Okay, so can you break down the term Udic force for the listener, please?
Right. So, so during the 1800s, like, there's something called the
talk about the wacky side of the Nazis. Fucking hell.
Right, like so, like Boltzmann and Mach had like a great debate during the end of the 1800s, like in physics, which was sort of do atoms exist, right? Like this is the beginning of like thermodynamic theory and the theory of atom in the modern sense. And Boltzmann was in favor of atoms. But Mach, who you know from Mach 1, is when you break the sound barrier, right? Very influential physicist in the fields of aerodynamics and rocket science and things like that, right? So they're both Austrian, German, like of the Habsburg Empire at the time, right? And they had this discussion, and it influences like physics, you know, for generations to come. Like, are there atoms? Or are there, is there something like a vitalist essence to things, you know? And you can understand that obviously the Nazis love the idea of there might being some kind of vitalist essence, right?
Yeah, like some kind of deep, dark, almost like Lovecraftian kind of power which they can somehow come to harness for themselves, as
exactly.
I'm sure they would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and it's electric, and it's filled with, you know, the will of power, and it's, it's filled with destiny, teleology, you know, it's got all these things that Nazis like to fool themselves into believing are real. Whereas the atoms, you know, they are more like the Jews, right? Like they just wander around haphazardly, you know, they don't have a home of their own.
The diasporic atoms, yes.
Exactly. And then, like, you know, just by happenstance, they happen to form things like molecules and real elements, you know. But all this randomness really, like, puts off the Nazi interpretation. And so, I mean, it is somewhat similar then, like, so this was late 1800s. This debate starts, I think, in the 1870s, 1880s. Our guy, Baron Karl von Reichenbach, he was already doing this like in the 1840s, 1830s, like sort of the end of the Romantic period, the beginning of Aryan naturalism. Like, so obviously, like the natural sciences are taking over what used to be more, social sciences like natural history or linguistics, and like, you know, anthropology comes later, but like linguistics and natural history were big things at the end of the Baroque, the beginning of the 1800s, during the Enlightenment. And now here around this time, 1840, it's the end of the Romantic period, and also begins the introduction of like more hardcore natural sciences as we know them, like biology and things like this. Soon Darwin is going to release the... And so, and then this is when he sort of bridges these two things, this industrialist then, who is doing hard scientific chemistry, basically, but wants to introduce like the Aryan romanticism. Like he wants to bridge Aryan naturalism with Aryan romanticism.
Of course, he does.
And so he got this, so he got like this Udic force, you know, it's perfect. Like, is it prana? Is it chi? Is it electricity? Is it what you said, you know, like this substance, like of darkness that he's dealing with? Well, he thinks it is. And then, this is just, I haven't introduced this to the series yet, but I'm going to do that because it's so crazy.
I love it. Yeah, this is a real, like, what is it that powers Santa's sleigh? We must harness it kind of Nazism.
Yes. It's like, it's always stranger than fiction. You wouldn't believe this shit. Like, it's so crazy. Oh my god.
But then it has like the very real, as you said though, like that's the thing, because it can be very deceptive, like, because it is so wacky and it is so silly at times, and it is fun to look and point and laugh at these freaks. But then again, like they, as you said earlier, like the Ahnenerbe were also like doing the very real work of, like, you know, stealing actual bioscience from the Soviets at the same time.
And Reichenbach's activities were like, he had industry. He started the beginning of like the fossil fuel era. Like, we are burning up our planet because of what he discovered. So there is an Odic force, and it's suffocating us. It's like, it is true somehow. Well, like, that's the horrendous thing.
That kind of brings us on to what I wanted to talk about, which was, well, you know, not that I didn't want to talk about this, but like for me, the first time I heard the term ecofascism was probably about like 15 years ago. And back then it was kind of like a bit of a like young hot topic to be concerned about in like leftist kind of circles. And I mean, frankly, for quite some time I didn't really buy it back then. Like I thought, you know, this was a bit of kind of leftist wish casting, doomish wish casting. But having listened to your series on the actual existing ecofascism that we've been talking about, and also having seen the kind of bizarre Naziification of hippies that has taken place since COVID, which is extremely reminiscent of like the Lebensreform and stuff like that. I am now finally thoroughly convinced not only of the dangers of it, but rather going quite far beyond that, which is a point that you've just made and also made evident throughout the many series, which is not just that eco-fascism existed, but rather like I've been convinced that we are indeed already living in the eco-fascicide world, which was largely imagined by followers of the Third Reich and their Fourth Reich contemporaries in Wall Street, Geneva, London, Brussels, and so on. So I think that's kind of like, for me, like as you've described it there as well, like we already are in eco-fascism. And I think...
Or green capitalism, kanske it refers to itself as, or something.
Yeah, eco-fascism, green capitalism, same shit, yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, for sure.
I didn't really have a question there, but
what did you say?
Sorry, I didn't really have a question there. That, you know, that was just a kind of psychotic journey I went through while listening over the past 15 years, and then watching all of these hippies. It wasn't even the hippies; it was anybody who was just a bit quirky, kind of over. Well, a lot of people who were a bit quirky over COVID just kind of seemed to have their brains like a bit broken and rewired, and kind of came out as like Lebensraum eco-fascists.
Right. Yeah. Because no, I agree with you, because there's like, I think if you are not equipped with what did I say before, right? Like I asked you when I published that, if like, oh, was this a good quote or not? I said, when you are not equipped with the now I'm losing the word, but
so I've got construction noise going on in the background. Go on.
When you're not equipped with the contraception of Marxism, you tend to be, you know, it's easy to have these star seeds planted inside you, right? Like of, like the fascist, the fascist insemination, like the fascist ideological insemination.
Right.
And
use protection, people.
And I think like why it works so good is because it's like, it's back to like really like basic things, right? Like you reach like a point, like if you don't have a systemic approach to the critique of like the contemporary order of things, you end up sort of bouncing back and forth all the time between being in this world and not being able to do anything about it on an individual level, and a sort of like in the civilizational critique, you know, the way that Freud talked about it, like psychoanalytically, you know, the Unbehagen in the Kultur, right? Like the civilization and its discontents, I think is the...
you quoted from that in Ecofascism Series 1,
Right. Because it's like they weren't... I mean, these early hippies that were like the first... hippies like that came during the Belle Epoque, when like consumerism first took place, you know, when in 1910, the early 1900, also the 1920s.
Yeah, this kind of crisis of modernity, early hippies,
Yeah, exactly. They were like influenced by things that weren't yet like associated with Nazism, because Nazism wasn't around yet, but the sort of the connection had always been there already, like back to what I was talking about, you know, before with the Aryan naturalism and the Aryan romanticism from, you know, 100 years earlier. The connection was still there between like reactionary revolutionaries and sort of romantic revolutionaries, or sorry, like revolutionary romantics and reactionary romantics, you know, like back in 100 years earlier. And so the slip is always close at hand for these kinds of ways of life that wants to move away from where things are going, but on a sort of, you know, you do what you do and we do what we do kind of thing. Like you and me, we know that that's not like, that is the most stupid argument that people sometimes do on the internet. They're like, oh, if you like communism so much, why don't you take your community friends and go to an island and make communism there?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, because we know that's not how it works. Like these hippies would think that's a good idea to do like some Lebens philosophy or like some folkish utopia there, you know. But what you end up with then is like Midsummer. Like the movie Midsummer, right? Like you get like a cult.
Yeah,
and
well, I was also going to say like that coming out of Lebensraum in an odd way, there are definitely connections. Was Zionism is also comes out of like the same fervor, the same response, same area of the world. Sorry, can you hear this bloody knocking that's going on in my corridor?
No.
Oh my god! I'm just going to check. Give me 1 sec, yeah? Because someone is whacking the shit out of something in the corridor. Hold on.
Okay, Edgar Allan Poe. See you later.
Yo, they are literally destroying furniture in the flat next door.
Ah, shit.
Yeah.
I heard, now when you opened the door, I heard it, but I didn't hear it before.
Okay, wait, should I do a sound test and see if it's being picked up? Can we pause?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Pausing now.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, listener. I think they may have stopped, inshallah. So like it wasn't just Zionism, but it was also like Kabbalahism, like largely came out of that fervor as well. I mean, Kabbalahism kind of goes into Hasidism, which is a little bit more complicated, but there was like certainly like as you were saying, like it wasn't explicitly tied to Nazism, because we can see Jewish people trying to kind of do this own version for ourselves.
Yeah, and like the kibbutz definitely had like a hippie vibe to it.
It supposedly still does, though. I am skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, well, hippie in this way then, like, you know, that it's cultish.
That's true.
Like we want to do an alternative civilization for ourselves here.
Do you know, actually, it might be worth mentioning, like, I was part of a kind of folkish group when I was a kid. Have you ever heard of the woodcraft folk?
Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit about the woodcraft movement that took place.
What do you know of it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so like this was part of the revival of like Aryan romanticism in Sweden, for example. There was something called like the woodcraft and the handicraft movement. I think it was also big in Holland and in the other Scandinavian countries. It wouldn't surprise me if it was big in England as well. Yeah. But like again, 1870s, turn of the century. While I mean the Waldorf people are quite into it. And there are loads of like these sort of revivals of these various movements at the time that we're talking about, like for example anthroposophy of Steiner and the Waldorf.
Okay, mine's much more benign than that. Not like for us.
Yeah.
So when I was I guess very young, like starting the age of 9, like I started going to woodcraft folk meetings, which was for us in England by the 1990s when I was growing up. It was essentially like it was definitely like a lefty thing. And like a lot of
some Waldorf stuff is lefty as well.
Right.
That's a strange thing.
Yeah. But like it was more like a kind of lefty alternative to the Boy Scouts, because, you know, the Boy Scouts in England is like this super royalist and nationalist kind of institution.
He was a Nazi, right? Like the founder. I've seen pictures with a swastika when he's wearing it. Yeah.
And then like I remember, so like for me, like woodcraft was kind of like quite a benign, like, you know, we did like we did like very similar stuff to the Boy Scouts, but we didn't have this very rigid hierarchy. We didn't fucking salute the Queen and stuff, and we would go camping, and it was all very kosher and fine. But then I do remember like when I was around 15, 16, like actually looking into the origins of it and being like, this is a little freaky actually, like why are people dressing up as like these like in the early days they would like have these kind of faux or imagined kind of pagan ceremonies, like that midsummer kind of thing that you talked about. It was more along those lines, but yeah, nowadays I recommend Woodcraft Folk to any English people with kids. Send them, it's fine, it's good, but yeah, a bit of a creepy past.
Right. I mean, I think it's a similar wake-up thing for people who have been growing up and had their education through the Waldorf system as well. Because the connections aren't often like clear, especially, at least not in Sweden, but where like I think it's the biggest per capita, like because a lot of like anthroposophists fled to Sweden during the World War II, right? Like because they were persecuted. So the revival of like anthroposophism took place, I think, primarily like in Norway and in Sweden, or like at least it was big. Like Waldorf is sort of separated because it's mainly about pedagogy, right, and education.
Yeah.
So you don't have to actually even have read like Steiner to have your kids there.
No, it's quite like a trendy alternative middle class, almost kind of like liberal, like thing to send your kids to. Yeah, like forest school, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have like other alternatives as well for that are getting like popular as well. I think because some people might be a little bit disillusioned with like Waldorf education, because of course, having said it's possible to not be to be a teacher and having not read Steiner, it's also possible that the teacher have read Steiner quite a lot. and there are like weird incidents where you have people graduating like 9th grade and they've never opened up a book. They don't even know how to read. There's been like some scandals about this, like in Sweden, and documentary was made, I think 3 or 4 years ago, about like a school that was close to where I lived, and I knew some people who had gone there, and I don't know, like it's a strange mess, like this whole overlap, like of like civilization critique can take so many different forms that. And they are often very scattered, very, very disorganized, and so you can see why it was also so easy. Even if you wouldn't have had this sort of Aryo-heroic connection, that goes back throughout the 1800s, like in Germany and in the other Germanic countries, that civilizational critique is sort of like, I mean, because at this time, like Germans are in an underdog position, right? Like the French are mightier, the Habsburg Empire is like, some of like the German people are involved in it, some are not. Everybody's scattered, fragmented in different like kingdoms and stuff. So it does have, like I suggested before, there is a revolutionary romanticism that is like quite valid and like a good thing. But of course, it already starts to be perverted, like in the 1800s. And so then it's not hard to see 100 years later with like, let's say Monte Verita was like one of these first communes that was co-opted into the sort of the eco-fascist program. I wrote a short story about that to sort of try to capture the feeling of, just being a kid who would have joined, the 68 hippie movement.
Yeah.
And then you get to the commune and little by little you start to realize that more and more Nazis are there. And I think, like, don't you see the same thing kind of with Manson as well? Like how it starts off as some kind of like,
absolutely,
light and love relationship, and then not before long it's like biker gangs there with like German eagles tattooed to their forehead, and I don't know, like it's there is something going on. There is like some kind of weird
it's quite a short, it's a surprisingly short bridge, let's say. I remember when you in Ekofascism, the first series, when you were talking about the Lebensreform and talking about some of like the key tenets, which at first sound kind of I'm into that, like vegetarianism, living in the forest, doing fucking yoga, expressionist art or whatever. and then you start to see some other kind of like odd elements, like this emphasis on nudity, which is a little strange, like nude sunbathing, which is essential for like, you know, the kind of their, I don't know, it goes to that kind of what was the term that you used?
Exactly. Like there is some primitivism, but like because this is also like a thing that happens already like in the 1800s as well, when Aryanism or like Indo-European studies becomes the subject of religion. There is this sort of initially it's thought like when there is the Indomania in Britain, you know, with Byron and like the high romantic poets, right? There is this understanding that the Aryans must have been like a very high culture, like higher than what we are even today, you know, and like pointing towards like, you know, well, there was one big phalanx in both Germany and England who were like the classicists who pointed towards Greece, right? Like and the ruins of Greece and like, you know, what wouldn't it have been like, you know? And then there were like, the Indomaniacs like Byron and the not Schelling. Well, Schelling was a general romantic in Germany, but what's the other big romantic English poet? Snydon?
You mean Shelley?
Shelley, yeah. And so they were like, you know, more Indomaniacs. Like they read the first translations of the Bhagavad Gita, right? And some of those really early ones, like the one is just the Constitution of the law, the law of money, I think. The Codex of Money, something like that. But and they, like the classicists, they also upheld, you know, that the Aryans must have had been a super race, you know, like they must have been so good at everything, and it would have been high culture and everything. And so you don't have this primitive element at this point.
No, but also you have this like, connection of they must have been the super race, and we also must therefore be the descendants of it, right?
Yeah. Of course, that shit is always there. But then, you know, like, but what is the super image that you want to imitate changes throughout the 1800s, and when you start to have, when the theory of evolution starts to influence religion, sort of 1860, 1850, 1870, there's a new movement which is sort of like accepts the critique of their opponents. Like the religious evolutionist, or the evolutionary religion, what would it be? Evolutionary religion theories would critique and say that, well, because it's so far back in time, surely initially the Aryan Indo-European religion, which never existed, we have no text, we have no name, no artifacts of this. Like, don't think this is true. Like, you know, right now this 23andMe, you know, all these fucking gene bank commercial like DNA tests, they have it in their, you know, lineage. Like, I guess if you're not Jewish, I think it was started by a Jew in the beginning, right? But now it's like also for people who are Aryan, and they want to find out like, oh, when were you like part of like which Indo-European haplogroup? And it's like, that's all bullshit, man. Like, we don't know, we have no names, no texts, no artifacts from these people. You can't say that there was this culture, and definitely not say that there was this religion or a people or a people's soul. But in the world of theory then, when the evolutionary religion theorists, when they start attacking them, there are some factions within the Aryo-heroic movement, within the academia, and soon in the popular literature, who sort of embraces it, and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, like we were the most primitive ever, you know, like they just do like a flip on it, and it's like barbarity is the coolest thing that has ever existed.
Well, this is where I was kind of going earlier, which is, you know, in terms of like the modern post-COVID hippie fascists that we kind of have now, is that I think they're very much at that stage right now.
Yes, I think so too.
When I said earlier that like I have been convinced of the very real threat of ecofascism, that is to say, Trump and like Musk or whatever, they are not eco-fascists, and Hitler wasn't an eco-fascist either, really, but the eco-fascists like that is what propels the real like classic, you know, Hitler fascists or the if Musk is a fascist, it's what propels them, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because like you see all these, all of those like freaks that you see on TikTok, like the like masculine energy, you know, like oh, you need to sunbathe your asshole for 2 hours a day to get your like masculine energy charge, like all of this shit, right? It's so similar to the Lebensreform. And also like these freaks are like so connected to like the kind of this, you know, weird psycho right that we have right now, you know. Like history is not just rhyming, it's just a, you know, it's a flat circle, right?
And also I don't know, the echo gets more and more distorted as well, right? Because now we try to outline some kind of like idea, historical trend here that goes back, you know, to the romantic poets in England and the Jena romantics in England, and how there has always been this sort of this dialectic of, you know, intention, let's say, you know, because we're sort of dealing with not real class struggle here. It's sort of like it's class struggle within theory. You know, these are like superstructural, I think, because most of these people are posers, right? Like, I mean, there are very few of them who actually live in a functional, you know, areo-heroic commune somewhere. They're just posting about it like on the internet and saying that, oh, it'd be cool if it was like this, and this is what we should aim for, and this should be our intention. And it's like, yeah, sure. Like you're not gonna do anything. Like we know that you're just like grifters, man. Like I don't care. Like I saw one of these really famous guys who's like on Twitter. He was like using some natural deodorant that he has, but he's like sitting in business class on like on a jet airplane while he's doing it, because they need both, right?
Right.
Because like just as we said, the line is fine between the hippies and the eco-fascists. The line is also very fine between, you know, barbarity and primitivism is cool and just being a fucking bum. Like there's that line is also very much there, and I think they know it too. You know, like they don't want to be seen as you know, a complete outsider to the civilizational order. You know, that would be to be homeless. You know, and they cannot bear that stigma. No, so they need to like post.
It's funny, like this kind of goes on to the last time we did an episode together, where I really don't want people to mistake these kind of two things that we're talking about in terms of the topic today and the topic last time, which was those genuine indigenous, like people living in those social formations which are outside of society, which you know, they do live in the forest in communes and what have you, or on boats in communes or whatever it may be. That's kind of the it's how to say, I don't want it to appear like too
that's too the good stuff.
It's
that's
the
the
good
non-Nazi stuff.
But like I don't want it to appear as too fine of a line, because it's really not a very fine line at all. It's a chasm.
Yeah. I mean, they're not accidentally going to end up there, because they have no real coordinates. They have no real compasses of organizing meaning production that might even, you know, remotely possibly lead them to an actual better way of life. Because I mean, you see it time and time again. Like, I mean, just think of like, apart from like Franco and what's the Portuguese guy's name? Baltasar?
I always forget his name as well.
Salazar.
Yeah, Salazar. Right? Yeah. The most forgettably named fascist.
Yeah. But somehow like one of the most successful ever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the same thing with Franco in a way. Like, he's only known during like as a name. Like, what did Franco do? I think we only know about things from like the Spanish Civil War, which was a comparatively short period. If you compare it to the fact that like Franco would live until 1974. Yeah. Like, and so it's like a really long period where it's like fascism doesn't do anything. It didn't become, you know, back to, I don't know, like the Andalusian pure land that it was during the Roman times when it resisted becoming a colony, which it failed to do. Or I don't really, like if we were to extrapolate, this kind of escape from civilization, primitivism onto two of these most successful fascist projects, like in terms of how long they lasted, you see that it's just a matter of stagnation. They don't have it doesn't direct society in another direction. Nothing new comes out of fascism. Even if like the new would be the old, it doesn't even manage to do that. It just stagnates. That's all. And that's like, okay, now nothing changes. Okay, and what? Like things are shit, man.
Well, just to go back to what I said earlier, which is like, you over the series convinced me that we are in this kind of like Fourth Reich kind of eco-fascist reality now, which is crumbling in a sense. Like if you say like fascism doesn't really do anything in the case of Franco, well, if you take the kind of we are living in the global Fourth Reich interpretation and put it on the West, or maybe the whole world, the
North's relationship to the South, maybe.
Yeah. Like you can see it kind of, like as you said, like stagnating and kind of not really doing anything like right now. And then maybe we'll lull into a new phase of kind of, I don't know, ecofascism or whatever, or standard fascism backed by ecofascism, as we said.
Yeah, or some kind of like, some kind of like, you know how it is in. Were you into like Warhammer 40k when you were young?
I had girlfriends. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool, man. Well, if you would have skipped that, like maybe you could have followed along in this conversation.
Damn, but made a mistake.
No, but like there is like this one nice, and I think it's like an old observation. It's often cited in this sort of like. Prophesizing of the future that like they have technology in Warhammer 40k, but they also have religion, because they've sort of lost like they don't know why technology functions, like they've lost the theory, and they've just been sort of inherited factories and machines and like the means of production that reproduces capitalism.
Oh, this is very
goes
Philip
on by
K.
itself.
Dick. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think there's something similar, like if we were to have like an eco-fascist, like techno-feudalism order, I can see how it would be something like that, Like right now people think Bitcoin is something cool, and everybody who wants to convince you that Bitcoin is cool, they convince you because I know how, the blockchain works, and that somehow this insight into the underlying mechanisms of a means of exchange, that what makes it powerful or universal as a means of exchange, which is false. It doesn't derive its value from your understanding of it. It derives its value from like how well it circulates other commodities. That is the logic of capitalism. And so we can see how everything that they think is new and cool about this, which makes right now people flirt with the idea of like techno-feudalism and ecofascism, which is, robotized latifundias, where like some machine just takes care of the monocrops and like harvests things by itself. And then everybody just sits at home and mines bitcoins, like would be, I think, like one brain dead idea of how this would all work out.
This was always kind of my problem with Graeber, to be honest. As much as I do like Graeber's kind of a lot of Graeber's work, I do quite like, but the kind of what I've actually like the UBI stuff. Like I never bought into that, particularly like for the global South.
Neither.
Like the kind of the UBI argument, like it works if you have like a completely imperialist mindset and you don't realize that people in the global South actually do real jobs. Like bullshit jobs don't exist really in the global South because they're too busy feeding the global North, right? But yeah, sorry, that's just a little bugbear that I've always kind of had.
But I agree with you. It because it's an American hope, right? Like, because you and me, who are from the north of Europe, we have already lived in sort of semi-successful social democracies where we already had something akin to UBIs,
Right,
you know,
right.
like benefits and like
Healthcare
that made it possible to live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I was on the
You could
dole
live
for a
like-
while. It weren't pretty, but I guess I didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also we are like the first generation to see the real decline of it. Like, but
Yeah.
if you were like an adult towards the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, and I have friends and Sweden was better than England as well
Yeah.
at it. But you could have, you can live an okay life like without doing anything. And I'm not a moralist. I'm not saying that's wrong, like on a like individual level. If you can, why not? Like if you're doing something that you think is better than doing a bullshit job, go ahead. Like what do I care?
Yeah.
Like whether you work
Says
for
the two guys who were like
some
stay-at-home dads. Actually, I don't even have a child. I just have two cats. Doing like a podcast.
No, but we are
on
doing
a Thursday
important stuff.
At like 10 a.m.
Yes, I mean we are. Never mind that. Not gonna like excuse myself.
Oh no,
either.
that's what I'm
just saying.
Yeah.
But like, and I've worked more, so much on the rice field in my past that I can eat rice for a lot longer than most people. Should feel morally okay with it. Those systems only worked because the people in the global south didn't have any benefits.
Yes.
Obviously, like that's otherwise you wouldn't be able to buy a TV on your benefit money or coffee or any other colonial product. Like it depends on labor being cheap somewhere else. And I think I don't know, like just to like roam home that point, like that what the system, like if there is such a thing as like I've called it sometime like biotech latifundiaism or eco-fascist techno-feudalism, like I don't know, like this kind of like robotized future of UBIs
like,
or whatever.
What is it? The fully automated space communism and
right. Like that's our camp's version of it,
right? But it's kind of for me, it's kind of the same thing, right? As we just kind of outlined,
right?
Yeah.
That's also what because
fucking Aaron Bastani, man, I really hate that guy on so many levels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess the only thing that makes him, the only thing that makes sure that I would just have a conversation with him rather than punch him in his face is that he, to a certain degree, at least recognizes that for his idea to be possible, class struggle has to be overcome, right? Like you can't have that kind of tension inherent to society.
Yeah, but only in the developed global north. Right, as we said.
Well, in practice, of course, that's how it would play out, which I think everybody who reads that can see, unless they're like, but you do want to kid yourself, like when you read it. It's like it's a make-believe book, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't live in space, and also it wouldn't be that fun. I think, like, okay, no more class war, great, but I'm stuck on a fucking space rocket with like 10 people I don't like. Like, I would like some class war now. And just, I don't know, like it's I don't know, like I think that there is some inherent lure in this way of like, what you said, the flat circle, like I think the fascist brain likes that. Because it's like, it just wants peace and quiet, and it just wants order. And it doesn't like things out of the ordinary, and it just wants things to go on. And even though like the Bitcoin bros seems to say that, oh, I know so much about the blockchain and everything, it's like, give it 5 years in this society and you'd be like, and somebody came up to you and asked, like, either you remember like what it was about and why you were interested in it in the beginning with like Satoshi or whatever the founder was, and that all this even political theory about decentralization, you can keep that in your head or take this forgetful pill and you can just live in a world where like, okay, bitcoins are circulating and agriculture is robotized and you live off your Bitcoin UBI. I think all of them would choose that. Like they don't really they don't really, they are not actually subversive, you know, despite all their talk of like, you know, providing a different system. I think if they would just be given the harmony of like, yeah, the fascist brain dead like appreciation of quiet, everlasting, all is as it is, you know, nothing, you know, like the Asperger dream of like nothing out of the ordinary happening. I think they would choose that. And I think definitely like somebody like Elon Musk, who clearly is like that kind of a person, he would also choose it. Like he would like, okay, Elon, you're not allowed to talk about Mars anymore. You're not allowed to like speak as if you're like, you know, bringing us into the future, but we do have a place for you in this everlasting future of no more out of the ordinariness. Would you like to be part of that? And he would be like, yes.
We just got to let them, like, if they could just play Minecraft, like, you know, 16 hours a day, I think they would probably be quite satisfied with that.
Also, right? Yeah. And sometimes I think about that too, that like maybe don't radicalize them too much. Like don't take away all of their coping mechanisms. You know, they are not organizing in the street. They're not. Most of them are not demonstrating outside of synagogues. And I fought with Nazis outside of synagogues.
Well, we're demonstrating outside of like Jewish institutions more nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say that. Don't worry.
I'm just glad that they aren't more organized than they are. You know, like that is probably good.
Yeah, I don't know, but then there is like, well, it's weird, isn't it? Because like you do, like we did have these kind of, I'm gonna call it a pogrom or an attempted pogrom that took place over the summer in England.
That's right.
You've had a few little outbursts of that in Sweden in the past few years, and like the people taking part in these, you know, wannabe Kristallnachts, like that don't really make it to the full Kristallnacht. Like these are not the eco-fascists. These are like the kind of the lumpen. You know, no class consciousness, disenfranchised, exactly, who are kind of being goaded by, be they eco-fascists or just regular fascists. Yeah, like, and as we said, you know, flat circle history, like I and not just echoing, not just rhyming, not just echoing, but flat circle, like it is like, it is worryingly similar to me. Like I was never really that concerned about like the rise of actual fascism until like kind of these I think it was these kind of wannabe pogroms over the summer, and then I was like, okay, because there was one in Ireland as well. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
But then another part of me, Ireland, and then another part of me is just like, you know what, fuck the West, just let it all go up in smoke. I'm perfectly fine in the global South, you know.
I think sometimes I also escape to like that sort of thinking. But I don't know. Like I don't know. Like now we talked a lot about. I don't know. I'm not jumping away from this, but like now we reached a point like where we're both agreeing that let's just get away, which is in our heart isn't really what we want to do, but like sometimes it just feels like that. That's all we're saying, right?
Yeah.
But like so to be a little bit more productive, should we say something about?
Well,
I don't know, like,
Well, can I ask you then, just to be a bit more productive? I mean, the Lysenko stuff, I know you don't want to get into it too much, but I also know that you've been doing some kind of, maybe very hands-on, I'm not entirely sure how far you've gone, research into like this kind of electrolysis and the kind of Lysenko-ish approach to kind of bioscience, which is genuinely quite interesting and exciting and has some kind of potentials.
Oh yeah, like the vernalization.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And like some of the like the natural farming theories.
Yeah. Because that is a genuine alternative, like a very real alternative, which could, and I think is in some very small pockets, like we discussed last time, like a functioning means of not going into ecofascism. Which maybe as I said, like maybe the global north has already kind of lost that outcome. I don't know, but certainly in the global south and certainly in China. Did you read that journal I sent you, by the way?
Yeah. I started reading it.
It's
I'm
amazing
on the,
stuff.
article about the lake. Yeah,
like,
so good.
I think
it would have been
those dams, those like natural filtration dams that they're building. That's fucking. Just to briefly describe it to the listener, it's like there's a lake in China, and it was getting too polluted by like runoff from the local villages, and so they built these canals that intentionally ran the kind of wastewater from the village down to the lakes, and in the canals they build this like entirely natural dam, which itself made up of these certain plants. I can't remember exactly what. Filters the water naturally and requires little to zero maintenance, and then it goes into the lake nice and clean, and then the lake benefits as well, and then the fish come back, and then the fishermen come back, and blah blah blah. So like there are like kind of utopian happenings taking place at the same time as all of this kind of doom and hell and gloom.
Yeah, for sure. I've built one of those in Spain for the grey water of a commune, and now I also don't remember because this was mainly the idea of like the guy who ran the place. I don't remember what plants he were using for somebody to replicate it. But if you search about this, you'll find out, and there are many different kinds of plants that only grow in sort of slowly running water. For example, the wasabi plant, right? Or if you saw that film Minari about a Korean farmer in Minnesota, I think, that came out a few years ago. Very like good feeling film about like farming. I think, what I was saying before, that Warhammer 40k thing. I mean, what's bad about not remembering how things work, but still like sort of living off the fruits of it working. I mean, that's only bad if you make use of those fruits to go to endless wars. But if you want to like that's why I put it forward as a critique that will last 40,000 years in the future according to that universe. But like for us, I do think, and we talked about this like before, that automatization isn't a bad thing. Like, we shouldn't think that agriculture is only worthwhile because it's labor intensive. Like, of course not. Like, we want to look for things that are, might not need so much labor and still work. And so this year, I will try now this. I've tried it before because it's a little bit far away. The mountain where I have the Satayama or the Satoyama, like it's a kind of natural farm that was made by like a man who's old now. He's 70 and he wants me to gradually take over over there. And
you didn't tell me about that.
And it's very beautiful. He's made like a lot of ponds. So there is like so much like biological wildlife going on there, because it's like this place got like trees, it's got terraces.
Is it part of like the ponds. Fukuoka tradition?
Like he knows who Fukuoka is, and Fukuoka was an inspiration. But Satoyama is like an older, like Fukuoka also like updated the Satoyama concept, and the Satoyama, I'm just so I don't mispronounce here. This represented, it says like on Wikipedia, Satoyama is a Japanese term applying to the border zone or area between mountain, foothills and arable flat land. Literally, Sato means village and Yama means mountain.
That's where I live. Okay.
Yeah. And Satoyama have been developed through centuries of small-scale agricultural and forestry use. And so it sort of blends together this threshold between the wild and the agricultural. And this was, like, the Romans had a word for this as well. I can't remember now what it is, but I used to knew, or I used to know in Europe, when I was in Europe, I used to know the various Latin words for like these different kinds of ecosystems, and this is one of these like border ecosystems that are like in between the fully like the anthropomorphic and the wild, right? And so over there, in first last year, I did way too many crops that need, you know, to be tended to a lot more. And I quickly realized that like nature is too powerful over there. Like I would have to be there every day to tend to them and put away weeds and stuff to make sure like something like a Brussels sprout would survive.
Yeah.
And so this year I'm gonna try like the more indigenous, like the wild approach of like, or semi-wild approach of like the Three Sisters, which I mean, to me it's like old news. I've dealt with this before, but like for those who are getting interested in this and who are younger, the Three Sisters is basically like an old indigenous American approach to Satoyama farming, like this kind of like in-between farming, where you have 3 plants that sort of like the consequence of their proliferation sort of causes good condition for the other plants as well. Like, yeah, so it's what we call the symbiotic relationship, right?
Yeah.
And the 3 plants are corn, any kind of bean or peas, and then squash or pumpkin. And so what's happening here is that the corn, or you can use Jerusalem artichoke, for example, they create very tall, or sunflower, they create very tall stalks, and like very sturdy stalks that can like sort of defy winds and just stand tall. Like if you do it correctly, like last year, my Jerusalem artichoke were like one was almost 4 meters. It was crazy.
What?
Like, yeah, it was insane, man. It was bending over, obviously, but like still, it was like really crazy. And because I'll get to what I did to the soil later, but so the stalk becomes like a beam, right? Like a pole onto which the beans or the peas can climb. And so you don't have to put like anything in there, like anything artificial, like a net or a pole of metal or wood. It like the plant itself is the pole. And then if you plant them close enough for them to have their own space, but close enough for the beans to like shoot off also onto others, you will create like a sort of natural net where they'll climb on each other.
Right.
And then to make sure that like it's only the beans that pop up and get there, you introduce the squash, the pumpkin, or the melons as the third plant. Like first the corn, 2 or 3 weeks later you introduce the beans, then like 1 or 2 weeks later you introduce the I mean, you'll have to mix around depending on where you are, and getting the timing right is what's interesting about this method. Like once you learn where you live, you'll know how to time it. Like natural farming is all about timing.
This is very
so what you want to do,
yeah.
like so what you want to do with the final introduction of like the melon, squash, or pumpkin is that like this system, you don't want it to be overcrowded then in a third stage of weeds who are also climbers and who don't produce anything, because it's going to suffocate both the beans and the peas that are climbing on the corn, and it's going to suffocate the corn itself. So you introduce these runner crops, again, pumpkin, melon, squash, maybe even cucumber, that creates a lot of like foliage and will cover the entire ground around these other around these poles onto which peas and beans are growing, without climbing up them themselves. And so it covers the entire ground and creates a lot of like green manure as well, because these leaves are usually huge. But most importantly, it covers the ground to such a degree that you won't have too much weed growing around it. You won't have so much wild grass covering the and shading the others. And so, yeah, these 3, if done correctly, if the timing is done correctly, it's a system that should run by itself, ideally. and then it doesn't matter if it's too far away from your house. Like, so in my case, I usually have to walk like half an hour to get to this place, and so I can't go there every day in the way that I would, because I don't have a car, and so I want to try this now and see if I can learn the timing of this area here. Like, what is it like? What is nature like over here? And the best way to like learn what nature is like somewhere is to start trying to time the growing of like crops in this way, and to like see, and all right. So, and I'll add like then like as a last point, like what I did to the soil to make sure that I could get like 3 almost 4 meter tall Jerusalem artichokes or sunchokes was that I did like something called like the IMO preparation, or the amendment, which is a kind of like, think of it as like sort of fermenting sauerkraut or kimchi, but you're fermenting something like a bacteria culture which is intended to be introduced to the soil. Like, so it's not for the gut biome of human beings like sauerkraut or kimchi would be, but instead you collect microbes from the wild forest by bringing al dente cooked rice into the forest in a small basket of some kind, either like
I've heard about
braided
this.
bamboo.
Yeah. It's what people do with. Is it the same as with rice water? I've seen people use.
Yeah, rice water, you can make something called LAB.
Yeah, you just leave
which
it,
is
right?
lactose acid bacteria.
And it's the same when you make cheese. It's like the leftover
Yeah.
water from that.
The whey.
The whay, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Because I remember when I was making cheese, you were like,
you get a lot
save
of whey.
that shit,
Yeah, it's the most that bacteria in the whey is the most common bacteria in the galaxy that we know of, like the lactose acid bacteria, and it just so happens to be a bacteria that thrives the best on 37 degrees, which is the human body temperature, which is far out. It's far out, man. How did that come about? And yeah,
That's the substance
like,
right there, man.
Yeah, maybe. But like, so the IMO is a slightly different spectrum of microbiology than the lactose acid bacteria, though you should use it as well. Like, I also use it to eventually inoculate the final product that I make use of. But when you collect it in the forest, you're gonna have like a lot stronger, like a different bacteria. Like once you put the rice out there, it looks like disco light when it's become inoculated. You're gonna have like patches of neon strong pink, yellow, green, blue, if you've done it correctly.
Oh, it's like
if
one
it's
of those
done
wacky basmatis that wacky biryanis that you see sometimes.
What's that?
You know, sometimes you get like biryani and they'll dye some of the different rices and then they'll cook them all together and then you'll get like this kind of like pop of color in the biryani. All right, don't worry about it. Yeah, go on.
Okay. Yeah. So like once you've collected like this microbiology from the forest, like, so you put like some rice in a basket that needs to breathe, right? Like, it can't be a fully sealed basket. So either like a cedar box with like some hole in it, or like braided bamboo, or something that breathes a little bit, but which doesn't have holes big enough to invite critters of any kind, like big larger critters, or any large animal for that matter, which might also like rice. And you want to cover it against the rain as well, right? Like, because if it gets too moist, it'll all turn black. But if you get the disco colors and you get like this sort of cotton candy looking foam or web on top of it, which you might have seen if you left something in your fridge for too long, like that web that's a good indication. Like, now it's a healthy microbial environment here. Now you only have a small basket of a little bit of rice. Now you want to start like to ferment this and to reproduce it. And so you need a medium. And the medium I use here is rice, and this would work in Thailand then as well, or anywhere in Southeast Asia. So it's in Europe I would use oat and oat bran, but here I use the rice shaving from the local.
From the mill.
From the local mills where you can get it for free,
Yeah.
where people go and bring their brown rice to shave it down to become white rice. And also some people bring the rice husk to some of these stations when they dehusk the rice. And you're once again allowed at these other mills to take the husk, and you're allowed to take the shaving for free because nobody wants this rest product. Some places sell it, but most places here on the countryside in Japan at least give it to you for free. And so I bring that and I mix it 50-50, so you have 50 carbohydrates, 50 carbon, basically is the idea. And then you take like your rice. So like actually, like if you want this to last longer, you don't want to do the first step every year. So like 3 years ago, sorry, mine is already 3 years old, which is that I took all the rice and I mixed it with sugar, the same weight that the rice would be when it's inoculated. Let's say it was half a kilo, then I take half a kilo of organic brown sugar and I mix that with the rice, and I have 1 kilo of like goo now. And then I put that in a mason jar and I seal it. And then I only take about 2 tablespoons of that goo. This goo is called IMO2. And I take 2 tablespoons of the IMO2 and I mix it with the medium of 1 part rice bran or like rice shaving and 1 part rice husk. And I put this like in the field, and I put 2 tablespoons in water and I soak this medium so that it becomes sort of 70% hydrated, like so that you can sort of make a ball out of it without it breaking, like in your hands. Like yeah. And then I cover it, and then in 2 weeks you're gonna see that cotton candy foam or spider web is gonna start to like crawl all over the medium, and now you have successfully inoculated a much larger, amount of medium with the same kind of microbacteria that you collected in the forest. And then you mix it again with half the amount of soil. Like, so if you took, let's say last year I took almost 20 kilo of rice shaving and rice husk. And so then I added 20 kilo or 20 liters of soil. And then I mix it again, cover it. And in the end, you have like this kind of strange looking medium with spider web, like intricate going through all of it. And it's like thoroughly inoculated medium that is like, so potent with like some of the strongest microbes in the world. And even including the LAB, which is the strongest in the galaxy. And I then just scatter this on the field, and it will start to inoculate the soil. And it's preferably do it when it's raining so that it doesn't burn, because the microbes burn quite quickly. And if you're adding it only to like a smaller patch, then you can cover it with a tarp or something, and it will inoculate even better. And and then like you will kickstart the you can turn like dead soil into healthy living soil within like 1, 2, 3 years. And it's crazy like how vigorous and how rejuvenating like nature is, like when you see it in practice. Like you really, this is good therapy. Like you will be like, oh my God, it's so fast.
Well, I was...
like all this abuse. It's like a housewife that's been beaten to shit like since she was 15, and now it's like it's all gone. Like that never happened. And it's like and the people who were evil are being held accountable, and a new life has begun. Like, it's all nice now, and well,
I just had two comments on that. The first was like just on the practical level. Like I remember when I moved into my current place in northern Thailand, like the land that I inherited. It's not that much land, like it's a decently sized garden, and it had been basically not paved over, but put like those little gravel over it, and there was like a tarp over the gravel, so the soil underneath was like so fucking dead. It was like it was hard as well. Like I couldn't like barely break into it. And at the same time, they had just legalized cannabis in Thailand the same year, and everybody was rushing out to get cannabis plants
Seeds?
with the sativa to smoke. But I had to hunt quite deeply to get a hemp plant, because I wanted something which would, just grow the roots deep into the soil and break it up. And I think it was just after like 1 year, I planted like, I think just 2 of these tiny little hemp plants, and they just skyrocketed. I mean, in the space of like a year, like it had gotten to about 3 meters tall, and the roots had just gone way down and just broken up all the soil for me. Like I didn't need to get like some
cultivate
special
it.
tools and turn the soil over manually and do all this labor-intensive stuff. Like it just did it for me. And then afterwards, I planted my herb garden there, and it's like 3 or 4 years later now, it's still very much thriving.
Very nice.
And then the other thing I was just thinking when you were saying all that is like, well, 2 things. One is that like what you're describing is actually not very labor intensive. It's knowledge intensive, but it's not actually that labor intensive. We're talking, that much work over the space of like what, a year, 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not very labor intensive.
Just a few hours.
Yeah, just a few hours. And then also like following this, it will be even less labor intensive because you've done all of the hard few hours work over the past year, and you're going to reap those rewards. And then my final thought was like, just thinking about all of these eco-fascists that we were talking about before, like no way would they have the patience. Like
no, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly. It's like an investment in patience, whereas they want to do things all the time. They don't care if it's pseudo activities. They just want to like keep themselves occupied because, well, they don't want to think about their mother. It's like they have so much shit that they don't want to think about, so they want to do something all the time. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna let you go in just a second, but I just really quickly want to ask you about like the electrolysis thing, because I'm just this is something I know it's
I've never
early
really
days.
like done that I haven't done that like with practice. If you're talking about like copper wires and stuff.
Yeah. I know
like
you haven't done it in practice, but you talked about it in the Lysenko
Yeah.
series, and then there was something that you were talking about, or maybe you posted about like during the Dust Bowl. They were experimenting with like just shooting electricity at the ground, and it worked. So like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. I mean, it started, I think, in France. This movement that like and actually like just regular copper wires. I think maybe that's how they first, because copper is like one of the most least stable of all metals, right? Like it's got like one electron too much or something. I don't know. But like, like it's an unstable metal, so it always discharges like low frequency electricity all the time, basically by its own molecular composition. And if you put like copper wire just around the plant, like for example, snails will react to it. Like they are sensitive enough to realize like, this is like a high voltage fence, though it's just a copper wire. But like this, I think maybe this is what led these people into it, like that you can create some kind of with like you can create some kind of like Tesla coils, basically, like extremely low voltage Tesla coils that you can like put into the ground, and somehow like, seeing as I've seen it myself that like snails don't want to walk over copper wires.
Yeah.
And snail is like, on a microbiological level, a snail is a giant. So if it has, if a simple copper wire has that kind of effect on a snail, I don't know what it's going to do, if you put this in the ground and you actually sort of do something more to it, to charge it. What is it going to do to the microbiological flora of the rhizosphere? I don't know, but they are saying that it actually like does produce like a visible, like crazy, like increased yield of the plant.
And this was something that was experimented with, like, I mean, 100 years ago, and has kind of been ruled out of as pseudoscience by the kind of Fordist, Rothschilds, super conglomerates, the buyers and what have you. And I mean, you went into it a little bit in the last Ekofascism series, but looking forward to more as to like why not? Why are we not fucking around with like putting copper wires in the ground? You know?
Yeah, because it seems like I think it also because it depends like on knowledge. For it to become a science, it depends on the knowledge of like microbiology, and that was only sort of revived like in the 90s. It was all about the gene. For the most part of the 1900s, and like sort of
this
gut
is like
flora and things.
Okay.
It has only now recently restarted to be like an interest. I mean, they were doing it in the end of the 1800s, same as with like Tesla and all his ideas about electricity. I mean, they were like shelved because there was no interest in. There was like a Dutch guy I talked about who already towards the end of the 1890s. He had already discovered that like legumes fix nitrogen in the ground, and he was like, "Oh yeah, fuck IG Farben. Like we don't need to do any synthetic fertilizers. Like we can just grow legumes in between. We grow other plants, and it's going to, bind nitrogen naturally into the soil." And then World War I happened, and there were like stockpiles, higher than the Tower of Babel with. Like fertilizer that was supposed to be made into bombs, but which couldn't be made into bombs now, synthetic nitrogen. And they were like, okay, let's give this for free to the farmers so that they get hooked on it and they will keep buying it from us.
And this is the Green Revolution.
That's before the Green Revolution, but that's like sort of
the preamble to the Green Revolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they did the exact same thing after World War II, where once again there were stockpiles of nitrogen, synthetic nitrogen that nobody knew what to do with.
Other than drop on Vietnam.
Other than not drop on Vietnam or Korea or
Laos.
You know the deal.
We know the deal.
The rhythm.
All right.
Yes.
Looking forward to the new series. Thank you, Marcus, again for joining us and just like spinning somewhat out of control. As opposed to your like kind of highly regimented episodes that you released where you're kind of like very almost fascistically structured and like well prepared, and then you come on here and you kind of you just start spinning, and we love to see it.
Yes. Yeah, this is 2 years old and no notes, so I think I did pretty good.
Oh yeah, man, I haven't listened to it in 2 years as well, to be fair. So I did also want to put a shout out to listeners of your show and mine, ours rather. This is a collective endeavor on the DinDeng part. But so I have a book coming out in around, let's say 3 months from now, I'm hoping, and with Leftward Books, and then also with a publisher in Thailand and probably a publisher in Malaysia. And we've got some very good friends now, DinDeng does, with the pub in the publishing world. And me and Marcus, I think initially the way we first started talking was I was like, yo, we need to like turn some of these podcast series into books. Because a lot of people don't listen to podcasts, and a lot of people actually still do read books. And then also like a lot of your work would be, I think, very helpful to have as like something that people could cite, because you can't really cite a podcast. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Tried.
Yeah. Respect to them, but we're not quite there yet.
I saw somebody doing their examining thesis. They did cite one It might have been actually the biological peace and warfare episode
Nice.
that this person cited. But yeah, I'm sure you get the same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes people ask for a transcript
Yeah.
to a theoretically or just materially dense episode where a lot of names are named and where a lot of dates are dated and so on. Like, yeah, there are some things that go way better in print for sure.
So to that end, if anybody, we're a bit low on manpower. I shouldn't say that. We're a bit low on labor power at the moment. I'm too busy. Marcus has a child, fair enough, and other DinDeng people are too busy with other projects. So if anybody is in publishing, not publishing, but let's say editing, and would be interested in helping develop some of these series into actual written books, do reach out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great shout out.
Yeah, already. Okay, folks. Thanks again to Marcus, and yeah.
Thank you
I'll
for
see
having
you next
me.
week.
Thank you for
Always
sitting
welcome.
through this. I hope you. I hope you get to where you have to go today.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, folks. Kiss.